We will grow. We, the United States, will grow faster than Japan. We will grow faster than almost anybody. Therefore, almost by definition, by growing faster than the rest of the world, we're always going to have a trade deficit. So I don't know why you'd want to use the trade deficit in a calculation for a reciprocal charge. I understand your point about non-tariff barriers. I get that. That's why I would have chosen a handful of countries, I don't know, maybe 10 or a dozen countries, and really carefully pinpointed it. But to apply this to the whole world on the basis of trade deficits, is that really the best in your judgment? You've been around a long time. You've looked at these. You've done analysis. Is that really where we should be at?
You know, if I was a doctor, I would have just amputated the patient's frostbitten toe. Is there a reason you decided to douse him in gasoline and light him on fire? Anyway, that's Larry Kudlow, a conservative economist, conservatively asking Trump's U.S. Treasury Secretary why their tariff policy isn't very conservative. And he seems to be mildly schooling him in the process. But listen, I'm sure this is just Kudlow. Okay? I imagine our actual elected Republicans are 100% behind their king. I mean, president.
I am a Republican. I am a supporter of Donald Trump. But this is a bipartisan problem. I don't care if the president is a Republican or a Democrat. I don't want to live under emergency rule. I don't want to live where my representatives cannot speak for me and have a check and balance on power. One person can make a mistake. And guess what? Tariffs are a terrible mistake. They don't work. They will lead to higher prices. They are a tax, and they have historically been bad for our economy. But even if this were something that was magic and it was going to be a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, I wouldn't want to live under emergency rule. I would want to live in a constitutional republic where there are checks and balances against the excesses of both sides, right or left.
Here's something I don't say very often. Wow, I totally agree with Rand Paul. In fact, let me check. Nope, wasn't on my 2025 bingo card. Who doesn't love a good bingo card joke as the world burns around us? But it's true. I agree with what he's saying. I also don't want to live under emergency rule, and I too believe that our elected officials should have some say in politics. You know what I'm talking about? But I guess democracy isn't that important when you can just give one man all of the power. Let him do whatever he wants, wear whatever he wants, maybe a robe or a crown. You know what I think bothers me the most is I think Trump actually would like wearing a crown, if for no other reason than just like that's his aesthetic, you know? Like that's his taste. It's very gaudy. Anyway, can we get a Democrat up in here, please?
What's the rationale for getting behind this?
Well, one, we should not live under emergency rule. The Constitution said taxes are raised by Congress. Most specifically, taxes originate in the House and come to the Senate. So I'm against emergency rule. But on the tariffs in particular, on the idea of trade, trade is proportional to wealth. The last 70 years of international trade has been an exponential curve upwards, and the last 70 years of prosperity has been upwards also. We are richer because of trade with Canada, and so is Canada. Whenever you trade with somebody, when an individual buys somebody else's product, it's mutually beneficial or you wouldn't buy it. If the trade is voluntary, it's always beneficial. There is no Canada versus the U.S. The consumer wins when the price is the lowest price. Tariffs raise prices and they're a bad idea for the economy.
This clip of Tim Kaine and Rand Paul reminds me of when Kanye West and Mike Myers appeared together after Hurricane Katrina. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it didn't go great for Mike Myers. In fact, I think if you watch that clip again and you turn the volume really loud, you can actually hear Tim Kaine's thoughts just being like, please don't say anything insane. Please don't say anything insane. And hey, don't get me wrong. I love when politicians from opposing parties come together to try to talk some sense into the Trump administration. Okay. It's just, should someone maybe check on Tim Kaine? Is he okay? He looks like maybe he put himself into a cryogenic slumber back in 2016, and then they just woke him up, and the first face he saw was Rand Paul. That actually would make sense. That might explain why he looks so scared. At any rate, with this dynamic duo, Mike Johnson is going to have no choice but to just completely heed their concerns. Mike Johnson is absolutely going to go, hey, you guys just made a great point, and look at you from two opposing political parties. This is surely going to shift my decision-making away from doing anything other than supporting Trump.
Mr. Speaker, there's a push by some of your members to give Congress a say. Don Bacon has a bill to give Congress a say and review the tariffs. Why not give Congress the opportunity to have it be a check on the president.
Congress will weigh in on it, but with the president, with the administration in tandem, and I think you got to give the president the latitude, the runway to do what it is he was elected to do, and that is get this economy going again and get our trade properly balanced with other countries. So I think most of the American people understand the necessity of that. Listen, we had a $1.2 trillion trade deficit in 2024. I don't think that's fair to our country. I think the American people understand that, and I think they see a president who's engaging and trying to fix that. So we're going to give him the space necessary to do it, and we'll see how it all develops.
Do you think Trump administration officials should...
I'm honestly fascinated by Mike Johnson's ability to speak so matter-of-factly about these things, as if unilateral decision-making is why Trump was elected. And maybe he was for some people, and I do understand the rhetorical goal, right? Like, Mike Johnson wants to downplay how absurd everything is, because what's the alternative, you know? That boot isn't going to lick itself. But for the life of me, I cannot remember any time in my life that a conservative friend or family member has been like, you know what we need more of? We need more tariffs. We got to get this guy back for the tariffs, until Trump started saying the word tariffs over and over again on the campaign trail like he was Beetlejuice. Imagine if he'd have said something besides that. Imagine if he'd have said something besides tariffs. Maybe he could have said like Medicare for all. Can you even imagine? That'd be crazy. Just spitballing. No one wants that. Americans don't want health care. Come on. That's not what Trump was elected to do. Trump was elected by the people to put tariffs on islands that are only occupied by penguins. So we need to give them all the longitude and latitude, and we got to give them all the roadways and the driveways, all the space, all the power. And you know what? You can voice your little opinion, all right? But eventually, you're going to kiss the ring. And then the Democrats are going to kiss the ring. And then all the American people are going to kiss his ring. And then we're moving on to the penguins. Every penguin is going to kiss his ring.
Sir, have you talked to any tech leaders over the weekend about the tariffs?
Yeah, I talked to the biggest in the world. I talked to the biggest of them all, many of them. But I've talked to, I would say 4 or 5 that are considered the biggest. They don't, you know what they said? We don't blame you.
Who did you talk to?
I don't want to say. I'll put it out. I may give it to you.
NVIDIA CEO?
I have to find out if they mind. You know, I don't know if that was a confidential call or not, but we had 5 or 6.
I wonder if the reason Trump can't tell us what tech leader he spoke to is the same reason he couldn't tell us what his favorite Bible verse is. 'Cause he's lying? Or maybe he's not. Honestly, I don't know. I can't actually imagine one of our reptilian techno-feudal overlords just telling him what a great job he's doing as they seal the door to their bunker shut. But honestly, maybe this is all just a bunch of hysterics. You know what I mean? Maybe this is just the liberal media freaking out again over a bunch of nothing. How bad could these policies really be?
I think this is the biggest policy mistake in 95 years. And what is interesting is on the Republican Senate's website. So if you go to senate.gov, and look up tariffs, this is what they say. It was on June 13th, 1930, that the Senate passed the Smoot-Hawley tariff, describing it as among the most catastrophic acts in congressional history. Now, this is the Republican-controlled U.S. Senate. And it said, despite the fact that 1,000 economists wrote a letter to Hoover saying, veto it, he did not veto it. And then it goes on saying the results were, and to use their words, disastrous. So disastrous that the American public voted the Republicans out of the House, the Senate, and the presidency 2 years later.
Okay, well, the biggest policy mistake in 95 years sounds bad, I guess. But I mean, what really happened 95 years ago that was so bad? Last I checked, it was called a Great Depression. I'm sorry, I have to make stupid jokes or I will throw myself out this window, which won't even hurt me, but it'll make a mess. And my wife will be upset and I don't feel like cleaning it up. You know, the more I think about it, the more I think I realize why Tim Kaine looked that way when he stood next to Rand Paul. Just because that's how everybody looked when they had photos taken during the Great Depression. So he's probably just rehearsing. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know how all of this is going to play out, but I'm also not going to pretend that they know how all of this is going to play out. One thing that kind of gets under my skin sometimes with this whole issue is everybody becomes like a tariff expert cosplayer, depending on whether or not they're for or against the tariffs. The only difference between the people who are for these tariffs and the people who are against them is that the people who are against them tend to be economists. Even like conservative ones. but they're actual people, human beings. They're not made up by Trump's advisor, Peter Navarro, by scrambling the letters of his own last name. This is why I think it's so good that they're finally thawing Tim Kaine out. It's good to see you again, Tim. Things aren't going so well. But how do you guys feel about this? Are you freaked out? Are you angry? Are you trying to laugh into the abyss as it swallows us whole? For me, I think this is a microcosm for this country's increasingly rampant anti-intellectualism and anti-expertise. It's not just that they're creating chaos. It's that when this chaos is brought up as a genuine concern, you're immediately gaslit by Mike Johnson and his eye-rolling pompousness. They're like teenagers, this administration, right, that are rebelling against their teachers because they think they know better, when in actuality, they don't have a fully formed prefrontal cortex. Only these aren't teenagers, these are adults ostensibly. And I think the one good thing that has come out of this entire situation is that I learned about an island that only has penguins on it, and that's where I would like to go. So I'll see you there. Thanks, everybody.